But instead of twisting my body like this, which is going to blow this knee right out, instead what I do is I crank this knee around in the direction I want to go. And now I took all that stress off the knee, but as fast as I could turn that knee in this little, say, 6-8 inch arc, my whole body can turn in the same amount of time. In this video, we're going to look at some of the biodynamics and the metaphysics of gifted performance. First of all, it's interesting that our bodies are designed so that when we use the movements that are the most powerful and the quickest, they are also the movements which are the most protective of the joints. So it's designed within our bodies that as we move faster and quicker, we can not damage our joints. So as we study these biodynamics, we're going to place an emphasis on exactly which joints are moving, how they're moving, the power and the stresses that are placed on the joints, as well as increasing the speed, the performance, the balance, the flexibility, and the gracefulness of our body movements. So when we look at just the fact that there's a lot of knee and elbow injuries when we do various athletic activities, we'll see that a large focus of the gifted performance is based upon the elbows and the knees and how they are moving and what is making them move, whether the elbows and the knees are going to move first and lead the movement, or if the elbows and the knees are going to be pulled or pushed through the movement. So let's just begin by just looking at the safety aspects of biodynamics first. So if we look at our knees, naturally our knees bend, and they bend forward, but they're not supposed to be twisted too much either. So when we look at body turning movements, if we study how the biodynamics of our knees affect the rest of our body in a turning motion, but we'll see that if we turn by looking first, so we turn our head, look, it turns our upper body in the direction that we're looking. And if that's the direction that we're going to move, we can see that we are placing attention on our knees as we turn. I'll do it again. So the quicker we turn, the more tension we're putting on our knees. And if we turn rapidly or quickly, naturally the more tension is placed upon our knees in this torquing type of motion. Also, depending on the footwear, our footwear can also influence the tension placed on our knees, because if we have really cleated shoes or shoes that are designed for traction, or even like lug shoes if you're hiking or doing outdoor activities, you can see that having the feet firmly planted also affects the amount of tension that's on the knees. So my feet are planted, so if I turn my body real quick, you can see all this tension is going into the knees. Whereas if I am not firmly planted, have slippery shoes or non-traction type of shoes, some of the tension is taken off because our feet might rotate a little bit as we do this quick movement, or they might give before our knees do. One of the aspects that we're going to look into is how can we take off the pressure from our knees as we do rapid motions side to side, especially as the speed of these motions start to build up. So instead of turning our upper body first this way to lead movements, we're going to lead the movement with our knee. And in particular, the knee that is closest to the direction of the movement. So in this case, this right knee is the closest for me to be looking to turn to the right. So I can look, that's okay because I don't have any tension yet. But if I want to turn and start my upper body turning, as soon as I make that decision to turn, I lead that movement with my knee. I'm going to step forward so you can see it just a little bit closer. So as I turn, I'm going to lead that movement with my knee. So if I pick up my heel, naturally I can take some tension off the knee, or I can just slide my feet and take tension off the knee. But the idea is that my knee is leading first. So what happens is, as my knee moves, it opens my hip. As my hip opens, it starts to turn my shoulders. And I begin to face in the direction that I want to turn. So we can see that if the knee leads the movement, the rest of the body is going to turn with it. Also, depending on how we're turning or what biomechanics were used to turn affects the weightedness on our feet. So if we're exhaling, naturally we're sinking. So we're putting more pressure or tension on our feet to prevent them from turning. So if I exhale to turn, even with leading of the knee type of movements, your body is sinking, putting weight on the feet and on the legs, because exhale is a dropping or a stabilizing type of motion. But if instead, if I inhale as I do the turn, the inhale is like a lightening or a lifting, floating kind of energy. So if I inhale, my body has that light feeling as it lifts up, and there's also less tension on all the joints. So as we get into the biodynamics, and especially the metaphysics more, we're going to look into different sources of breathing, especially on the inhale, which can enhance this movement. For now, we just want to look at the knee and the safety of the knee, maintaining the wellness of the knee, also preventing less stress on the knee, and relating that to one of the movements of gifted performance. So in all our movements, we're going to concentrate on moving the knee first in a turning motion. It could be in a reverse motion. So I might be stepping this way, and then I want to change directions and go 180 degrees to the other way. And usually you look first and you begin to turn your upper body first, and you could see all the pressure going on to this knee. So naturally, if I turn real quick, I'm putting tremendous pressure, rotational stress and torque on my knee. And if my feet are planted, it's even worse. Naturally, if I have a little flexibility in my feet and in the traction, it would take some of the stress off. But for the most part, if I'm turning this way, I'm putting all this stress on my knee. If I do just the inhale and exhale, which we just illustrated, if I'm exhaling, you can see I'm heavy. But if I'm inhaling, you can see I'm light. So that takes some of the stress off. But when we look at just the plain, ordinary biodynamics, again, if I lead the movement with my knee first, and I start turning the knee first, you can see the knee is opening my hips and pulling and rotating my hip into the new direction that I want to move. So in essence, what this motion is doing is taking almost all the pressure off of the knee. So, again, one of the reasons that for safety we want to do this type of movement. But also you'll notice that it's also quickest. So the biodynamics are that the knee connects to the hip connects to the backbone and up to our shoulders. So since they're all connected, it turns out that as fast as I can rotate my knee through this arc, which is a small arc, that movement might only be 6-8 inches in a diameter, like that. So it turns out that if I'm connecting all these joints to my knee, as fast as I can rotate that knee, I can turn my body. Because the knee is yanking my body into this rotational arc, and you'll notice that I'm not even using any upper body strength, and I'm not turning my shoulders. I'm letting my hips turn my stomach, turn my chest, turn my shoulders, but my hips are being turned by my knee. So again, so everyone can see, it looks like this. I rotate my knee, and the knee is pulling my body around. So you notice there isn't stress on the knee, but notice how fast I can turn from looking this way to 180 degrees. It might even be like in tennis, you want to turn and reverse direction 180 degrees. It could be in basketball. You get the ball and you want to go 180 degrees. Or also it could be in a fake. You want to fake, I'm moving this way, and then you all of a sudden want to start moving the other way. So in athletics, in dance, there's always these movements that require a 180-degree body change that are very dangerous on the knees. They put a lot of pressure on. Football is the same thing. You know, you want to change directions rapidly. There you have cleated shoes. Soccer, the same thing. Baseball, you might be running, and all of a sudden, you have to go back to the base you just left. So you put on the brakes, now you got to turn. And again, if you turn this way, you just put all this stress on this knee. But if you turn this way, with the knee leading the movement, not only was it faster, but it was safer on the knee joint as well. And now the problem is you have to stand back up, which is difficult being this low, and you're most likely going to have to change 180 degrees and go back the other direction. So the biodynamics are still the same, is that no matter how low you go, right, you crank the knee in the direction you want to turn, and I'm going to push off of this foot, my front foot, for energy backwards. But instead of twisting my body like this, which is going to blow this knee right out, instead what I do is I crank this knee around in the direction I want to go, and now I took all that stress off the knee, but as fast as I could turn that knee in this little, say, 6-8 inch arc, my whole body can turn in the same amount of time. So I go low, and I'm saying reaching, reaching, reaching. I gotta turn. I get energy from this planted foot, and I crank the knee. And as fast as that knee cranks, I'm off into the next direction. And you could see that that knee pulled me forward. As it turns, it's bent. And see how it pulls my hips forward, and I go off in the new direction automatically. But what's most important for connected movements, I just don't want to stay there, is that as I crank, as that knee pulls me forward, right, I reach the point where that back heel lifted up. I can't push off this back foot anymore, right? But if my knee pulls my hips forward, my knee pulled my hips over the foot, so I can immediately push off of this foot to go forward. So I'm getting one continual push of energy from the time my front foot leading this way pushes me into the direction. I'm getting this foot's energy, pushing, pushing, pushing. Now I'm already pushing with my front foot because my hips are able to, and I also have energy of my knee moving forward. So we're getting a very quick and powerful, what we call a 180-degree type of turning motion by driving into the knee. The other thing is we want to make our body as light as possible and not heavy. And the exhale tends to ground us. So if I go like this and I try to move on an exhale, it's grounding. I could crank my knee, but you can see I want to be rooted or grounded with the exhale. Right. Instead, we want to use the inhale because it does the opposite. It lifts you up and it expands. Instead, I want to expand in that direction. So now I'm going to do it on an inhale. And that inhale, if we drive it from our feet up, or if you're doing abdominal breathing, drive it from your abdomen. But on an inhale, I want to make myself light and expand. So on an inhale, I go, and you can see the difference between and. So our breath patterns then make us quicker because we don't have the grounded energy. It takes that away, cuts it off, it makes us lighter. And you can see how my body is expanding into the motion. That's what's making it quicker as well, is I'm expanding into the motion. When we look at the two muscle groups, we're also using these inner muscle groups for this movement, and they're the quickest as well. So we want to keep in mind our breath rhythms are also half of the duality of a breath cycle. You have exhale and inhale, and if you're only using the exhale, you have grounded movements that look planted because they are planted, but sometimes you need the other half, the other 50% of potential, and that's, I don't want to be planted, I want to be light and airy, right? Moving quick on that inhale. So there's a time for both halves of dualities. And how to mix and match them depends on the situation. Because there are certain positions or situations where you need to be grounded, then you don't want to inhale. You want to remain there. Right? But there's other times when you don't want to be, you want to be this. So part of our biodynamic studies is not forgetting that we can mix and match. So we'll receive this bag coming back on like an exhale, and then we'll receive it on an inhale. So it's more dramatic, like if I'm just on 1 foot. So I'll receive this on the exhale, receive this on the exhale. Now I'll receive it on the inhale. Again, receive it on the inhale. Or take the inhale to an extreme.